Crows often get a bad rap. In many Western cultures, they have historically been associated with disease and bad omens, reviled as crop stealers by farmers and condemned as nuisances by city dwellers. But these birds are fascinating creatures, adaptable and brainy to an extent that's almost scary, and their mystique is just one of the reasons why nobody would like to have them as enemies. A crow was caught tearing apart the flag of Israel, right at a time when the country is in the international spotlight due to the delicate situation it faces with Palestine, and that has it on the tightrope with international organizations such as the United Nations and the European Union. But how does all this relate to the mystery and the intelligence of crows, and to events like those in Japan where crows have collapsed the electricity system using traffic lights and vehicles as a survival strategy? The answer lies in the size and complexity of their brain. Of all the living birds, crows, ravens, and parrots have the biggest brain-to-body size ratios, and in lab experiments, these avians show a degree of cognition that puts them on par with the great apes. In fact, research has shown that they have a much higher density of neurons in their forebrains than primates do. The amount of neurons in this region is thought to correlate with a given animal's intelligence. Theoretically, having more neurons translates to better cognitive reasoning. There are studies that we will talk about in a moment which confirm the ingenuity of crows, positioning them as the most intelligent bird in the world. And observing from up in the air, crows have the ability to recognize the current discontent of many inhabitants about what's happening in Israel and Palestine, getting rid of Israeli flags as a way of expressing their disagreement with the worrying human rights situation taking place in that region. This is one of the most logical theories about the reason for the support by crows that has been evidenced in this footage destroying an Israeli flag. But leaving aside the mystery and mystique of these animals, that turns out to be the most coherent explanation in this regard. However, when we go into an in-depth analysis of the brain capacity of crows, we find that apart from having the largest brain of all birds, they use it in a much more efficient way even than humans. Crows have been found to reason in a superior way from an early age, implementing unique survival techniques such as making and using tools to capture prey, or the ability to transform their environment by adapting their nests for comfort. This shows that their ability to learn in order to improve their quality of life is superior to that of most animal species. Like we mentioned, you don't want a crow for an enemy. Crows are able to recognize faces and keep resentment. In 2011, a team from the University of Washington published a remarkable study about the brain power of local crows. The researchers' goal was to figure out how well the birds could identify human faces. So in the name of science, they utilized two Halloween masks. One resembled a caveman and the other one looked like a politician. It was decided that the caveman mask would be used to threaten the birds, while the politician one was relegated to control status. At the 5 sites, a scientist donned the caveman mask before catching and banding some wild crows. Getting trapped is never a fun experience, and upon their release, the ex-captives loudly scolded their assailant with a threatening caw. Seeing this, other birds who had been sitting nearby joined in the fray, swooping down to harass the Neanderthal visitor. Over a period of 7 years, both masks were regularly worn by team members on strolls through all the 5 test spots. Without fail, the caveman mask was greeted by angry scolds and dive bomb attacks from crows, including many who had never been captured or banded, while the birds largely ignored the politician mask. Amazingly, the caveman disguise continued to provoke a hostile response 5 years into the experiment, even though the team had stopped trapping the crows after those first few site visits. And some of the birds who antagonized the mask wearer weren't even alive back when the whole thing started. The younger crows couldn't possibly have seen the imitation caveman grab an acquaintance of theirs, but they scolded him anyway. Clearly the grudge had been passed on. Birds were still attacking the mask as recently as 2013. The moral of this story: mind your manners around crows, because if you mistreat them, they won't forget you, and neither will their friends or the next generation. A 2020 study looked at whether crows, like humans and great apes, can demonstrate consciousness. Crow brains lack a cerebral cortex, where most of the primate brain's conscious perception happens. Researchers tracked the brain activity in 2 crows and they performed different tasks, and discovered that they could perceive sensory input, suggesting that there is much more to understand about the evolution of consciousness. In Japan, carrion crows use cars like oversized nutcrackers. The birds have learned to take walnuts, a favorite treat, over to road intersections where they put the hard-shelled snacks down onto the pavement. The crow then waits for a passing vehicle to smash the nut, after which it will swoop down and eat the delicious interior. It's a risky trick, but the crows aren't usually run over because, unlike some people, they've figured out what traffic lights mean. Carrion crows wait until the light turns red before flying down to place the uncracked nut on the road. The second the light goes green, the crow takes off to watch the nut get run over from afar. It will even wait for the next red to scoop up the nut's insides. This behavior isn't limited to just one corvid species. American crows have been observed doing the same thing in California. Since the 1990s, crows have experienced a population boom in Japan, where, not coincidentally, delicious garbage is more plentiful than ever before. This is bad news for power companies. Urban crows like to nest on electric transformers and will often use wire hangers or optical cables as building materials for their nests. The result was an epidemic of crow-caused blackouts in major cities around Japan. Between 2006 and 2008, the corvids stole almost 1,400 optical fiber cables from Tokyo power providers, and according to the Chubu Electric Company, crows are responsible for around 100 power failures per year in their facilities alone. To fight back, Chubu started installing artificial love nests in 2004. Made with non-conductive resin, the nests are placed on companies' towers high above the power lines, where the birds are unlikely to cause any trouble. The strategy seems to be working. 67% of the fowl nests are currently in use, making life a lot easier for Chubu employees. Lots of non-human animals, including chimpanzees and orangutans, create useful tools which help them survive in the wild. The New Caledonian crow is one of the 2 species on the planet that can craft its own hooks in the wild. The other one is called Homo sapiens. The South Pacific avian uses the hooks, which are made from pliable twigs that the crows bend using their beaks and feet into a J shape to extract insects from tight crevices. Another surprising attribute is the species' bill. Unlike virtually all other birds, the New Caledonian crow has a bill that does not curve downwards. For years, the quirk went unexplained, but scientists now think that the avian's unique beak evolved to help it grasp tools more easily, as well as to better see what the tool is doing. The New Caledonian crow isn't the only tool expert in the corvid family. In 2016, scientists at the University of St. Andrews demonstrated that the ultra-rare Hawaiian crow, or alala, is similarly adept at using and modifying tools. A 2014 study shows that at least some corvids can resist the urge for instant gratification, if you make it worth their while. The research was led by University of Göttingen graduate student Frederick Hillman, whose team assembled 5 common ravens and 7 carrion crows. Through careful note-taking, the scientists figured out what the favorite meal items of all 12 animals were. Then the experiment began. With an outstretched hand, one of the researchers gave each of the birds a morsel of food. Then the animals were shown a different piece of grub. The corvids were made to understand that if they liked the second option better, they could swap snacks, but only if they were willing to sit patiently for a certain period of time first. If a bird ate the original treat during that stretch, it forfeited the chance to trade it for a new one. Hillman's results showed that the crows and ravens didn't mind waiting around for an improved snack option. As such, a bird with a piece of bread was content to sit quietly if it knew that some fried pork fat would eventually be gained in the trade-off. However, if that same bird's second choice was another piece of bread, sitting tight would be pointless. So, understandably, corvids that were in this kind of situation tended to go ahead and eat what they had been given, thus revealing their way of reasoning, taking the opportunity to exchange for something better and choosing not to wait if they were going to get the same kind of food.